Today we're here to talk about an employee experience around employee engagement. We're going to briefly go through a PowerPoint slide, just sort of setting things up, explaining where we're coming from, why we're building what we're building, and then we're going to demo the product for you, which is Team GPS. So first things first, introductions. With me I'll have Vikram Kanatkar is our Chief Product Officer, and my name is Ryan Bailey. I am the Senior Product Manager for Team GPS. So real brief on our journey here from IT by Design. So we started as an MSP. We eventually grew to the point that we felt we could help other MSPs with our levels of operational maturity and staffing challenges, and grew into what IT by Design that you know as today. Helping continue clients with that transformation. The next step in that evolution of managing talent is leveraging tools to sort of do so, and that's really where Team GPS comes in. We wanted to build a solution that helps effectively manage the employee experience, and we want to make sure that we're being as purposeful about our employee experience as we are with our customer experience. So first things first, everything starts with our core values, right? These are the behaviors and beliefs that we hope that everybody that we hire embodies. We want to leverage these in several ways. One, we hire centered around these practices. We incentivize people centered around these practices. We discipline people based on these as well. They become talking points as part of our everyday nomenclature, which you'll see here. And with Team GPS, we really want to give you the tools to make sure that these can persist throughout your organization. They're more than just sort of fodder for a website, right? These should be the values that are going to make us successful, and so we want to manage to these as well. So why now, right? So, well, one, there's a lot of talent shortages out there. Everybody's sort of feeling that pinch, you know, ever since some crazy nonsense happened in 2020, and everything sort of shifted around from there. So there's a lot of talent shortages and culture engagement challenges, you know, due to that pandemic. Everybody kind of went disparate and spread off and started working remote, and with that comes different ways of operating your business and different ways of engaging your employees. That change to that hybrid workplace, whether you do still have offices or whether you're fully remote now, has really hit everybody, right? And so we want to make sure that we can build that purposeful culture that I talked about while being in this remote world through a couple of different things. And then, of course, you know, you have profitability challenges, right? And with that rising attrition challenge, you have losing employees or people going remote and having to, you know, really compete with other geographic regions to hire that you didn't necessarily have to before. That cost per hire and labor cost even has really skyrocketed. So, you know, these are some of the challenges we identified that we felt, hey, we can help solve some of this. So real brief on this Maslow's hierarchy pyramid here for the employee experience with the alignment is, you'll notice at the base of our pyramid here, we have employee engagement. That's a very nebulous term, right? How do we engage our employees? Well, we do that through a lot of things, and we start by asking questions, right? Is my team happy? Well, first I need to capture their sentiment and make sure that I can measure how they feel about things. Is my team aligned, right? Do they align with our core values as an organization? Do they align with our vision and our strategy? Do I have clarity of what I'm expecting from them? Do they know what good looks like? We want to make sure that we can create those clearly defined expectations for them. And then how do I evaluate better, right? So that's really the power of this tool that we're going to demonstrate to you today is pulling together these disparate tools, consolidated into one so that you can make a better decision and have actionable insights. So within that pyramid, right, the base of that is that employee experience, that employee engagement. We also obviously need to engage our clients, and then we need to have our company strategy cascade all the way down. So we have strategy on where we want to go as an organization. We set goals in place to accomplish that strategy, and then we roll those down to our departments and our individual goals. And all of that kind of cumulatively is going to make our employees aligned with our vision and our performance and engagement as well. So what is Team GPS, right? I've been talking about it a lot, and so we'll show you here in a second. But basically, it is a tool that unifies those different areas of an MSP in engaging your employees and customers. So one, we'll have customer satisfaction and engagement, capturing that data from them. Two, we'll have employee satisfaction, right? We need to make sure we're capturing data from our employees about how they feel and you know, how we can improve their work experience as well. We want to make sure that we can create a positive and productive culture through our employee reward rewards and recognition. We want to make sure that we have metrics-driven performance management. So, if you've ever used a performance management system in the past, one of those big HRMS systems, they get a little convoluted. There's a lot of detail that's not necessarily relevant to our industry or our individuals. And so we want to make sure that we're driving that performance based on the metrics that matter to us as MSPs. Business strategy management. So of course, being able to set that business strategy at the top level and then sort of cascade that down and align it with our rest of our organization, all within the one spot. So with Team GPS, the modules that we'll cover here, we'll touch on, but we have customer satisfaction. So we want to integrate with our PSA tools so that our employees aren't having to use disparate systems for that. Ticket-based customer satisfaction, we want to engage our customers in multiple ways. So one is CSAT, another is Net Promoter, but also custom surveys if necessary. Again, we want to have our employee engagement. So very, very similar. We want to make sure that we can track and trend that employee sentiment over time. We want to reward and recognize our employees through peer-to-peer recognition, centered around our core values. We want to make sure that we're secure, right? So we do offer single sign-on integrated with Azure AD. We want to talk about success measures. I think this is really exciting, and I think you're really going to get a kick out of this when I show you the success measures piece and what we plan to do for that and how it all ties together. And then we want to make sure that we give you the tools to manage things appropriately, right? I want to make sure that I'm holding my managers accountable to meeting with their team and tracking things for performance. So differentiators for us, right? So one, there really is no tool that does what we're aiming to do. There are different tools that have disparate pieces of this that do some of what we're doing, but tying it all together and consolidating is really powerful, not just from an ease of management of tools standpoint, but also from a data standpoint, right? If I have data in the system, then I can correlate that with other data to give me predictive indicators when there may be a challenge coming through. And I'll run through some examples as soon as we get to the demo piece here. Again, that single pane of glass, just making sure that everything is in one spot so I can start to predict. Let's say I have an employee who's becoming disengaged in some form or fashion. Well, that's a leading indicator that I might have a potential challenge with the customers that they work with because they are disengaged and they're, maybe not going to provide as good a service as I would expect from that. Again, we want to integrate with the tools that you guys are already using, making sure that it's as seamless as possible for your employees to leverage. And then we want to have a bigger, broader vision for the product, right? We do have bigger goals outside of just sort of capturing some of the sentiment and kind of recognizing and rewarding. We want to take all of that and tie it together to really give you a powerful analytics platform so that you can make these decisions a little bit better. And so with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and hop into the demo here and start showing some of Team GPS. All right, so we have logged into Team GPS. First thing you're going to see here is just the home page, right? And so this is going to be an aggregate dashboard of widgets based on your user. So if you're a owner level person, maybe I just want to see high level details around what is my current CSAT score with my clients? What does our Net Promoter Score look like? And then what are some recent reviews that we've gotten, just so that I can hop in if I need to take a look at something. What we plan to do here is really make this powerful based on the user. So as an example, if I'm an employee, I'll be able to log in here and see things like my success measures. So what am I being asked to do on a daily basis? What's my targets for utilization or customer satisfaction or SLA compliance, right? So we'll be able to see that detail here as the employee. As a manager, I may come to this page and see an aggregate of my team's score. So I get not just the individual performance, but I'll see my team's performance as well, making sure that I'm able to stay on top of all of that. So first, let's touch on the client engagement side of things. So over here on the left-hand navigation, you'll see that we have a couple of pages around client engagement, namely with CSAT health. So first, we'll click in here and see our CSAT health. And so first, this is just an overview dashboard of our CSAT numbers. So in the top right-hand corner here, I can filter by any given date range that I want to look at, either custom, last 30 days, last 60 days, and you'll see that the data updates in real time when I do that. From that data, I'll see within this date range what my key indicators around CSAT are. What's my net CSAT score? What are my reviews? How many reviews did I get in? What's the response rate look like on that? One of the cool pieces of this, and you'll hear me talk about data a lot, right? And the cool piece is this trending graph here, where I can not only see, my CSAT score sort of trended out over time. So I can look at this over the last 90 days, hit that week over week and present that to me. But I'll also see a second line here of other users. And what's powerful about that is I'll be able to see an aggregate of other Team GPS users, MSPs, who are leveraging the system, and what their CSAT score is. So I can compare and contrast. How am I stacking up to my peers? It helps you identify any sort of issues, right? Maybe there's some sort of ransomware attack that everybody's getting hit on, and you'll see those dips in the market really to kind of help validate some of what you're seeing as well. So a lot of power there. And again, the more the data that we get into the system, the more powerful this becomes, right? We'll be able to slice and dice that data in different ways. Maybe you are particularly ambitious and you don't just want to see how you compare against the average or the mean. You want to see how you compare against the top 1% or the top 5% of MSPs. And so the more data we get into the system, the better we'll be able to provide those data points and analytics. Again, because this is a dashboard, some high level detail here, just giving me a snapshot. I can see things like my most recent reviews that have come in, whether they have comments or positive or negative. I can see my top performing members. So this leaderboard is really an aggregate of the number of surveys that people have gotten in combination with their CSAT score. But I can also sort of see the opposite side of that, right? We want to identify any areas of opportunity that we have to correct either behavior or poor performance. And so we'll see our lower scoring members and the company side of that as well. So I'll be able to see which companies are giving me good CSAT scores consistently and which ones are maybe on the more upset side and giving me lower scores, so that I can action that, just kind of highlighting that detail. If I'm a service manager, I might want to dive in a little bit further, right, and see a little bit more detail on some of these reviews. And so with that, we'll come to our reviews page. And very similarly, right, we're going to have our date range filter up here at the top. So I can filter my data by whatever data set I want to look at, date range here. I'll still see my key indicators around the data that presents within this date range. So my net CSAT score, the total number of reviews, the response rate I'm getting. I'll see a breakdown of positive, neutral, and negative, and these are filterable. So if I only want to see my negative reviews over the last 90 days, I'd simply click this, and I'm going to see all of those negative reviews update in real time. I can take that and action it. Select it again, and I'm back to this view. There's also a show filters button down here, so I can filter this data down here in any number of ways. So I can filter by a particular company if I want to see how they've been doing over the date range. I can filter that by a particular person at that company, a team member if I need to, a board that I'm leveraging. If I have a customer that has multiple sites, you can see on the right-hand side, we're tracking the site information as well. So you can slice this data up any which way you want. And of course, we give you the opportunity to download it in an Excel. Which of course lets you manipulate the data and present it however you need to. You can obviously make changes to these. You know, we've all kind of been there, right? You get a review and it's a negative review, but the comments are saying, hey, this person was so great, thanks so much. Well, you can kind of make sure that you can adjust that, giving your engineers clarity that, listen, it's not just what they submitted, of course. You know, we'll correct this and make sure that your work is seen and valued. I'll also be able to see which team members have worked that ticket and then add tags or notes if I need to within the system here. So one of the other pieces of this I would like to highlight is that, you know, it's good to have this data in the system. And if I want to sit down on a week-over-week basis, I want to come in here and take a look at it and manipulate the data and play with it. But I also don't want to necessarily live in the tool, right? I want to make sure that I'm notified when this happens. So with our survey alerts function, we'll be able to create rules around the CSAT reviews that come in. So if a CSAT review comes in and I want to be notified if it has particular comments or something like that, or if it's for a particular customer, I want to be able to be notified of that. I can set that up here in the rules section. I can set up a new rule here, right, and name it whatever I want. Obviously, that's going to be based on the filters that I want to select. I'll say when a new CSAT review is received, I can select whether it's all of them if I just want to be notified on anything, or positive, neutral, negative, maybe only positive and negative. I can also filter that, as I said, if they have a comment on it, then let me know. And then I can simply just say, hey, send me an email to this email address. I can set this to an email connector so that it creates a ticket on a board if I want to, if that's how my process is, or simply just send an email to me. Again, there's a lot of power in this. Let's say you have 2 teams that are managed by 2 different service managers or team leads. You can set an individual rule up for each one of them so that they're notified when their particular team gets a review, or even set up one individually for everybody, just kind of giving you that detail. When you get the email for that to come in, it's going to have basically just all of the detail that you saw on that original reviews page here when you pop it out. So the email will contain the detail around what the rating was, who it was for, what the ticket was, and any details that are present there. So just one of the cool things that we have so that you're not having to, again, constantly log into disparate systems there. So we've talked a lot about CSAT, right? And again, these do integrate with your PSA tools. We integrate with ConnectWise Manage, Datos Autotask, and Kaseya BMS or Orex or whatever their PSA tool is called this week. And we also want to make sure that all of that is seamless as possible and the data is just coming in. One of the other pieces with CSAT that I did want to highlight as well is scheduled reporting. So you may have obviously clients that want to hear about the service that you're providing to them. I'm sure a lot of you follow standard practice and have a quarterly business review with your clients, for example, where you're going to kind of talk about this data. So if that's the case, I can schedule a new report here, a CSAT report. I can select which customers I'd like to send this report to, and then once I select the customers that are receiving the report, I can simply add an email address for whom I'd like to send that to at that customer. I can, of course, just send this to myself as well. Any email address in here will work. It doesn't have to match the domain or anything like that. And so it can be a good internal tool to use as well, just to get an update snapshot each month of a PDF report that gives me the details around that. One of the main options that we're going to have to select here is whether it's a monthly or quarterly report. That will determine the data that is present on the report. So I'll show you an example of what that looks like, sort of just a snapshot. But basically, when you get that sent out, let's say I selected monthly, right? It's going to show me the customer. A lot of background noise there. So it's going to show me the customer for which the report is present, the data on the report. It'll show me the date range. If we selected monthly, that's going to be a calendar month. If we select quarterly, it'll be a calendar quarter. On the report, basically at the end of that month, the very first day of the next month, it will send this report out with the given date range, and it'll show things like the key indicators around the CSAT, a breakdown of positive, neutral, negative. It will show a graph over here. This graph will look a little bit different on the report because it's going to present basically a 6-month average that shows a 30-day moving average of a trend line. And the reason we selected that is that there may be months or times where CSAT data is not being filled in, or maybe it's particularly low in one specific case, and you don't want that to sort of throw off the graph and send that to your customer and be like, oh look, we did terrible for you over these 2 months, if they're not even submitting data. So the 30-day moving average just helps to kind of smooth out that transition and show a more positive trend for you, for the customers. And then again at the bottom, if they felt the need to submit a comment with their review, we want to highlight that and present that to them here. And so it's a really cool tool to make sure that you're getting this data on a regular basis. I don't have to go in and sort of pull this every month. I can just have it scheduled to send to me, and make sure that I'm not missing that. Again, something that's pretty good to use for internal meetings and or a quarterly business review process with the client. So with that being said, CSAT is one piece of the puzzle, right? That's capturing data from our clients, leveraging our PSA tool. Our engineers are closing tickets, they're working, and they're getting that detail. There's another person typically at these organizations that we service that needs to provide feedback. And so how we're capturing that is through our Net Promoter Score. So I'm sure some people are familiar with this, some people may not be, so I'm going to briefly touch on it. But Net Promoter Score is effectively a metric that calculates customer loyalty, or loyalty in general. It asks one question, sometimes a follow-up question, meaning that they can enter a comment to explain their response. But the question is, how likely are you to recommend our services to a peer or friend or whatever that might be? The customer then fills out a score from 0 to 10. And if they fill out a 9 or a 10, they are considered a promoter of your brand, right? Somebody who is actively promoting your brand and happy with their service, so much so that they would likely tell other people to work with you. Those are really good to have, right? We want to make sure that we're also drumming up business via our marketing efforts and everything, but word of mouth as well. If they fill out a 7 or an 8, they're not super upset, but they're not super happy either. And so they're considered a passive. So that's another way to sort of highlight if somebody is in that range, you can kind of talk to them. Hey, how can we get you a little bit happier here? How can we make you a little bit more satisfied with what we're providing? And then, of course, if they fill out anywhere from a 0 to a 6, they are considered a detractor of your brand. And that's important because not only are they upset with you, but they are potentially likely to actively be vocal about that, whether that's on an online presence in Reddit forums or whatever that might be. The internet is a really scary place out there for sure. Or maybe even at trade shows, right? If somebody is their friend and they ask them, hey, how do you like about working with, XYZ MSP? And they're going to say, oh, heck no, those guys are terrible, don't work with them. So we want to identify those as well. So with Team GPS, we want to make sure that we can give you the mechanisms to do that and capture that Net Promoter Score. So you can create a Net Promoter Score campaign, which a campaign is effectively just a recurring survey that goes out. NPS is different from CSAT, right? We don't want to send NPS every day or every ticket or every interaction because it's more of a feeling and a sentiment that they give as a whole that we want. And so I would typically, recommend sending this maybe once a year, twice a year, once a quarter. I would say no more than once a quarter. I have seen some people leverage it for monthly, but that you're really running into the, the survey fatigue area. So you would really want to just send this out quarterly, give people enough time to change their opinion either positively or negatively and provide that feedback. Once I have that out in the system and it's scheduled, it's just going to go send out based on the interval. So if I've sent it out once a quarter, it'll just send out another survey reminding them to fill it out once a quarter. When I do get those responses, I'll be able to come here and take a look at it. And so just like CSAT, I can filter by my date range up here and see what my NPS is over time. I'll see my response rate and the number of responses I got within that date range. And then I can filter by all of that information here, right? So I can come in here and let's say we're trying to drum up new business to hit some new revenue targets, and I wanna find out who my promoters are, who's likely to fill this data out for me in a positive way, or give me a testimonial or something of that nature. I also may, of course, want to come in here and take a look at who are my detractors, who's not happy with our services, and how can we correct that with them. And again, this is typically going to be a different person than that's filling out that CSAT, right? If the end user person at the customer that's filling out the CSAT for you is the person whose computer's not working, or they're trying to install a program and it's blocked for them, or whatever that case might be. That's not the owner who's signing the checks and making the decision to do business with you. And so you want to make sure you're capturing that person's sentiment as well. And that's the idea behind the NPS. Of course, you can sort of trend that out over time. I want to see my NPS, let's say over the last 12 months and see that quarter by quarter, just to make sure we're in the right direction. And then again, the power of the platform being data. I want to make sure that I can see other people's, how are other MSPs stacking up with their Net Promoter Score. So one piece of the puzzle is capturing that client sentiment, right? Getting the feedback from them. The other piece is our employees. We want to talk to our employees and see how they're feeling about things. Ask them, how happy they are. And so what we're leveraging for that, can anyone guess? Net Promoter Score. So just like we're asking Net Promoter Score, the survey of our customers on how likely are you to recommend our services to somebody, with an employee, we want to ask very similarly, how likely are you to recommend working here at our organization to a friend, a family member, a colleague, or peer, whatever that might be? And again, we fill it out on the same range, 0 through 10. If they give a 9 or 10, they're a promoter. 0 through 6, they're a detractor. I will highlight that one key difference here, because there are a lot of similarities. You still don't want to send this too frequently. You want to send it over a broad enough time for people to change their mind or see how they feel. But your customers are typically not going to have a problem submitting responses to you with honest feedback, right? That if they're upset, they're going to tell you they're upset. If an employee is upset, they have a different psychological safety about them, right? They may not feel safe enough to provide that feedback. They may fear retribution or something, but they have valuable information that we need from them. So we do give you the opportunity to allow this to be anonymous as well. So your employees can fill this out anonymously. The important piece is not that you're finding out who gave you what score. It's that you get the data in general and how they feel about it. So just wanted to highlight that, and it's a question we get a lot of times. And again, just like the MPS, I wouldn't recommend you sort of just do this and send it out and then just hope that they fill it out. You want to have conversations around this. You want to explain to not only your customers, that you're doing this new thing, but you're doing it with your employees as well, and you're going to explain to them why. We need to capture data. Here's what we're trying to measure from this. And then once you have that data in the system, once they are trusting you enough to give you that information, you want to make sure that you're actioning that feedback. You present this data to your employees and say, here's what we heard from you guys. You're not happy about XYZ. You don't like having Pepsi in the kitchen. We want Coke, or whatever the case might be, right? And so you want to make sure that you action that feedback from them as well, just to make sure that they understand why they can submit that. And then one other piece is that with employees, and the same with customers, if I have the need for this, you can send out custom surveys as well. So if you have more specific or kind of separate pieces that you want to get some information, either from a customer. So with a customer, it may be something like a project closure, right? And I want to get feedback on various phases of the project. I can create a custom survey that will go out for projects to give me that detail back. The same for the employees, right? If I want to figure out how an employee is measured in terms of engagement or their wellness, or just get a quick pulse on the team with a few questions every once in a while, I can create a custom survey in here and send that out to them as well. So separate from that NPS or CSAT data that comes in. So that's a lot of capturing data, right? We want to make sure that we hear how things are going, we're asking the right questions, and now we want to start to create that culture that I talked about. Culture is very important, right? It's when multiple people get together, a culture is going to be formed, whether organically or by design. And so what we want to do is create a culture by design, centered around our organization's core values. And so with that, we're going to come into our rewards recognition table. And we've got a couple of pieces here that I want to cover. So one is our core values, right? That's the main piece here. Again, as I said before, our core values shouldn't just be fodder for a website or a job description or something we mention in a quarterly meeting. We want to talk about these all the time. We want to hire people that fit the nature of these core values. We want to reward and incentivize people based on these core values. We want to tie these core values into their performance so that everybody is constantly thinking about and using this terminology to help embody these behaviors. So what we'll do is we'll set our core values as hashtags down here on this table, putting in a description as to what that means to us, something your leadership team comes up with. And then once we turn this on, we're going to leverage these as part of our recognition program. And I'll show you that in just a second. The other piece is that we want to reward people for this, and we want to take that out of our management's hand administratively, right? If you have traditionally kind of given out side awards, or maybe you're doing like someone put in a little extra time, you want to recognize them for it, maybe you're going to go get a gift card and you're going to run to the store, pick that up, whatever that might be. We want to take that out of your hands, right? We don't want to have to do that manually. We don't want people driving to the store or mailing things. We want to just handle it digitally if we can, and automate it, as well as centering it around our peers. So what we'll do is we'll set a points allowance basically, and each employee is going to get an allowance of points each month, okay? And what they can do with these points is give a shout out to their colleagues with points and a core value hashtag, recognizing their colleagues for something. And when they do that, as I said, they can give some of their points. So if I was to recognize Vikram for helping me out with something, I can give him 20 of my points. I now have 80 points left to give for the remainder of the calendar month. These points do not carry over. So if I don't use up all of those points, let's say I gave him those 20 and that's all I did, I would not have that extra 80 points next month. I would just start with that 100 again. So these are not rollover. They are just use it or lose it. But we'll come to the social feed and take a look at this. So once we come here, you'll see, it should look very familiar if you've ever used a Twitter or Facebook or something, right? And we have our call to action at the top of the page here, which is giving our colleagues a shout out. So with this, I will select the number of points that I'd like to give. I can select the recipient for whom I'm giving the recognition. I can center it around a core value, of course. I want to make sure that everyone's valuing humility or whatever the case might be. And then I'm typing up the description for why I'm providing that shout out. I can have fun with it. If I want to make sure that it's, you know, everyone's having a good time, and add a GIF. And then of course, I can see other people getting recognition down here as well. I can comment on these, add on, react to it, and just sort of have fun with that, of course. The important piece is that we're giving those points though. And so once I give that shout out to that resource, they're going to be able to come here and look at their info. So they'll see the points that they have to redeem, and those are points that they have earned through these shout outs. They'll see the points that they have to give left over from the monthly allowance, so they know where they stand with that. And then they'll also be able to, of course, redeem it. One other thing I do want to highlight here is that we do want to make sure that we gamify things, right? We want to have fun with this and show people that they're getting recognized. And of course, that will help breed that culture that we're talking about, right? If people are being recognized constantly, people want to be a part of that. Hey, I want to be recognized. You know, a lot of us cool kids are out here like, oh, I don't need that. I don't need gratification. But people like that, right? People want to be recognized and valued for their job. And taking it out of your hands as solely as a management team, and putting it in the power of your engineers, and so that they can recognize their peers, is super powerful for creating that culture that we talked about, all while keeping an eye on it and centering it around our core values. So with that, right, I can come in here and I can redeem points. And so what that looks like is I'll be able to come to this page, I'll see the number of points I have to redeem, and I'll be able to select a amount that I would like to redeem. So let's say I wanted a $20 gift card. I would select out of my points points that I have to redeem, the number that I want, and then I'll click redeem. When I get that redemption, I'm going to receive an email with a link to a reward catalog. And so just a quick update of what that would look like. So I've got that from my email, I've clicked the link, and now I can select anything that I'd like, basically. There's just any number of items here. So, you know, Amazon's a super popular one. I'll simply select that, select the $20 gift card, and then once I am able to add that detail in, that I want that Amazon gift card, it'll follow a process and it'll shoot me an email to that digital gift card, and then I've got that. So the Interesting. So the cool thing about that, as I said, is that takes the onus off of you to have to do that, right? You don't have to remember who likes Dunkin', who likes Starbucks, who wants what, gift cards, whatever. You just let them reward each other. You can reward them as well and allow them to pick what they want from that. One other thing that we're doing with the rewards recognition, so we've talked about points, we've talked about the redemption piece and the social interaction around the core values, but we also want to put awards in place. And so with our award system, right now we currently have automated awards. So these are just, you toggle them on and the system is going to automatically handle those for you. What we have for automated right now is a joining award. So if a new employee joins your organization, you add them into the system, boom, they're going to get an award. It posts to the social feed, it lets everyone know, hey, welcome, you know, so-and-so for joining us. And then you can give them a quick little, you know, bonus of points there that they can leverage for a gift card. Just a nice little welcome. Birthday, that's a big one, right? We, at least it is for me, right? So I've run large teams before, and it's very difficult to keep track of my own birthday or the people in my life, let alone my employees. And so we want to take that out of your hands. You don't have to maintain spreadsheets or get a report from HR or whatever. Just let the system handle that. It allows people to feel valued on their birthday. Nobody likes it when, you know, it's their birthday, they come into work and nobody knows it, and they feel awkward saying, oh, I don't want to tell anybody it's my birthday, but I'd really like some birthday kudos here. We just let the system handle that for us. The other one is your anniversary, right? We want to incentivize and reward employees who stay with us. And so we want to reward them based on that as well. One of the cool things that we're going to do is bake in manual awards. So the manual awards will, a couple of use cases for those. One, you'll be able to create these very customized to your organization. So if you guys have an employee of the month or a star of the quarter or something like that, you'll be able to create that award and have the system remind you, hey, quarter's ended, you need to give out the star of the quarter award, right? And so I'll be able to come in, add the resource that earned that we've agreed upon as a leadership team, and then give them the award through there. The other thing is we can help focus on career development and performance with this, right? So I can sit here and create a claimable award that says, listen, I want to incentivize you guys to upskill yourself and grow your careers. So if you obtain an MCSE certification or or AZ10 whatever, you will get an award for 1,000 points or whatever that might be. I'll reimburse you for the test. And you can sort of put that information in here and reward them for those things. A lot of other cool cases, or if you're focused on wellness or something, maybe you have like a step challenge, you can put that in place. And then another cool one, again, the power of the platform, bringing everything in, is we have performance related data on here. We have CSAT data on here, net NPS, things like that. And so I can create awards centered around those. So we can say, hey, listen, whoever has the highest CSAT score for this given month is going to get a bonus of this much. Or, you know, whoever gets the most reviews in place, you're going to get an award. So a lot of cool stuff that that we can do there with the awards. So that is in a nutshell what we've built with Team GPS so far. And so what I'm going to show you now is sort of an overview of what we're working on now and what we're marching towards, which is tying all of this together. So let me present this screen. There's a lot going on here. Let me try to set the stage. We are going to build in a performance system that is catered to MSPs. And so the value of this is that we know what the MSPs should measure for their employees, right? Especially their engineers. We know that level 1 engineers should have XYZ. We want to measure customer satisfaction and survey response rate. We've got those numbers in Team GPS. We want to measure first touch close rate because that's a good indicator that we're providing good service if we're solving things on the first go of it and not bouncing things around. We want to measure average tickets resolved per day, right? I want to make sure that I can staff accordingly based on the volume that I'm getting. And so I need my engineers focused on closing a certain number of tickets. We obviously want to measure SLA compliance, both resolution and response. Are we responding to tickets in a timely fashion as we've promised to people or as we've communicated on our website? Are we resolving tickets in accordance with what we've communicated? So being able to sort of track all of these things and other numbers, right, like utilization, are we billing our time effectively, all of that. We can put those here on our success measures and then present this to the employee via Team GPS so that they can see in real time not only what's expected of them, the measure on those numbers, but the target of what I expect them to hit. So you need to have a CSAT of 90%. You need to have first touch close rate of 50% of your tickets. And then in real time, we can pull this data out of the PSA tool to show where they stand at any given time. The cool thing is not only are we pulling this data in and they're seeing it in this place, but we can aggregate other data too and leverage it in one-on-one meetings or performance reviews because we have the data in the system. So what you're looking at here, and we'll touch on this more and how this fits into our one-on-ones in a second, but what we're looking at here is effectively a performance review, right? And you'll notice a few different components. We have our success measures that we talked about, and those are those numbers, those specific actionable KPIs, OKRs that I'm asking of my employees. We have goals here as well, so I can assign out project-related goals to somebody who maybe does something beyond just the tickets that they're working, and track that here. We'll have our core values, of course. I mean, I hope that that's clear at this point. Those are very important. We want to make sure that we're embodying those values and everybody's marching towards the beat of the same drum. And then we have job competencies as well. So you'll see the competencies there. And with those competencies, that's really going to be more job specific competencies. So for example, my level 1 engineers need a different set of competencies than my cloud engineers or my finance team or my sales team. And so we can tailor these to be MSP job role specific so that it's useful, right? And I'm not sure if any of you have ever filled out one of those reviews, but there's often stuff that is tries to blanket every role in an organization, and that's just really not how things go. And then of course we want to have it tied up with an overall rating so that we can score it and track it over time. One of the other cool things, as you can see on the right-hand side here, is we can bring an Accordion menu in that has a lot of different detail of data in the system. So when I'm measuring this engineer, particularly on their humility, for example, I can see how they are interacting and what sort of recognition they're getting from their peers. So let's say I'm a manager and I think that Tony here is not very humble, right? He's constantly arrogant. He's a good engineer, but he's not humble. And I want him to be more humble, right? I want people to not be afraid to ask him questions or something because he has a lot of value in that way. Well, I can look over here and see wow, Tony is actually getting a lot of shout outs around being humble. So maybe maybe I have a filter or a lens that is not an 100% accurate perception of Tony here, and I need to take that into account when I'm meeting with him and when I'm reviewing things with him. You know, we've all sort of been there, I'm sure, where you think you're doing something well, and then you get to a meeting with your manager and they're like, you're not doing this, and it's like, what are you talking about? I'm definitely doing that. I'm humble as heck, right? I'm constantly helping people out. I'm never asking for favors, whatever that is. And so we want to make sure that Tony, the employee, feels valuable, and all of their contributions are seen, and it's not just the perception of the manager. I'll say this a bunch, but the number one reason that somebody leaves an organization is that relationship with their manager. That's at least what starts them looking at other opportunities, because nobody likes to feel that they have no path up or clear visibility into how their contributions are affecting them. So the other piece of this is one-on-one meetings. So with the performance stuff, right? There's you can create big overarching performance reviews. We want to make sure that we can make that as easy as possible through aggregating the data in one spot, but we'll be flexible, right? If you want to do quarterly reviews and you only want to talk about success measures in those, you can set it up that way. If you want to do just an annual review and only talk about core values and goals, you can do it that way. So we want to be as flexible as possible to meet your performance needs. But one of the main pieces, as I talked about just a moment ago on the management and the manager-employee relationship, is the connection with them, right? We want to make sure that our managers are meeting with our employees, and we want our employees to feel that we care and we are invested in their success, and we want to do that through that visibility. So what we're doing is building in a one-on-one meeting system as well. The value being that we have all of this data in the system to make these meetings a little bit more informed and a lot more valuable. So you'll be able to schedule these out so that if you have multiple team members, you'll have that one-on-one connect. But let's say we're doing our performance reviews quarterly, and then I want to make sure that my managers are meeting with their team once a week. You have to check in with your team once a week. We'll be able to do a bunch with this, right? I'll be able to set a meeting agenda. We'll template this out so that as an owner, I can control what is discussed in these meetings, and it'll be templated so that each meeting presents itself with those things. So maybe we need to talk about your wellness. How are you feeling about working from home? How are you doing with your goals? Is there any blockers that you have that I can remove for you? Whatever those things are that you as an organization deem necessary to discuss regularly, you can template that for that agenda. But the manager and the employee can also add agenda items to this in advance of the meeting. And so that helps with your manager's visibility as well, right? So maybe I'm meeting with Vikram and I noticed I've submitted a PTO request 6 weeks ago and he hasn't approved it yet. This is not a real example, people, but let's say it is, right? And I want to talk to him about that. I can present that here, and that's going to be a good reminder to Vikram that, hey, I need to go approve that PTO request, or we can talk about it. And he's not blindsided by something there. And the same goes for the employee, right? The manager can put items that they want to discuss here. One of the other things that we want to do with the agenda items is, or with the meeting, is that we want to make sure that we bake in those success measures so that not only is the employee seeing that visible on their home dashboard, but we're talking about those numbers on a regular basis with the employee, week over week, if that's what I've set this for. And so we can talk about it, and the employee can see, oh man, I'm not hitting my utilization numbers, and we can course correct immediately, right? Hey, here's some tips on how we can make sure that this is better. Are you running into problems that's stopping you from entering your time in effectively? And identifying those issues now, as opposed to at the end of the quarter when you're maybe bonusing them and not giving them the bonus, is more valuable, right? They're going to have understanding and visibility into what you're expecting and what good looks like there. And then of course things come up during the meeting when you are having these conversations, and so I'll be able to set agenda items, sort of action items after the meeting, and assign them out. So they'll default maybe to assign to the employee. I'll add a to-do, and the to-do date will be the next meeting's time, so 1 week from now. And then when I bring up next week's meeting, I'll be able to see what we had talked about, right? That way I don't have to worry about it being tracked somewhere else or in my own Microsoft To-Do or whatever. And I'll be able to follow up on that and keep things accountable. And the idea is just that visibility and accountability, both for the employee and the manager. The other piece of this is I'll be able to make this data qualitative, right? So we have the quantitative data of making sure that we're meeting regularly, we're submitting to-dos and action items, we're measuring our success measures, but I also want to get how you're feeling about this, right? We want to continue that loop of accountability and keeping track of that. And that means holding my managers accountable too. So with this, you'll see up at the top right here, there's one of those familiar smileys, right? Both the manager and the employee will be able to rate the meeting afterwards. And whether they're happy with it, upset with it, or just neutral about it. And what this does is it gives me a lot of different data to make decisions about. So for example, if I'm meeting with one of my team members and at the end of the meetings for the first couple of months, they're all like green smileys, both for me and the employee. But then maybe halfway through the year, that employee starts to become a little bit disengaged with things, right? Their numbers are trending down a little bit, and they're starting to fill out, yellows and reds after these meetings. And I'm noticing, of course, they're being a little bit more, not as direct or dismissive or passive or whatever that might be. Well, that's an indicator to me that there's obviously something going on with this employee, and it's hard to identify that when we work remote now as well. So making sure that we can kind of add that data in here gives me an indicator that I might want to address this with the employee. The other thing is if you have growth plans, right? Just finding the talent is already problematic enough. It's difficult as we discussed, but putting forth managers over people and making sure that not only when I'm not having that direct connection with my employees and I have a management layer in there, I want to make sure that my managers are doing a good job at that. And oftentimes it's hard to find technical talent that is capable of managing other technical talent, right? Technicians, they're a difficult bunch to manage sometimes. And so we want to make sure that we're identifying any issues we have there. So let's imagine that we have two managers over a team and their employees are both rating the meetings afterwards. Well, maybe manager A is getting a lot of green smileys after their meetings, but manager B is getting reds and yellows constantly. Well, now I know that there may be an issue with this manager. I need to focus on their career development, for example, or I need to at least address this. Why is your team so upset after these meetings? Maybe I can sit in on it and course correct, because I don't want those employees to feel that they're stuck under a manager that they don't like, or that a management team is not there for them. And so I can identify that, which will help me scale my management team effectively as well. And lastly, guys, just real quick to highlight, we want to make sure, as again, that strategy piece. So as an organization, we want to make sure that we can input our business strategy here as well. So we can put forth our financial targets and enter data like our unique selling proposition or our target market and any verticals we support and all of that. We put that on paper, typically like a once a year sort of a situation where we meet as a leadership team and we identify where we think we want to go. And then we need to create goals around how we get there. So how we're doing that is through our goals and tasks module. So within this, you'll see that there are 4 strategic focus areas, really, that any business is gonna fit goals and operations into. So one is growth and scale. That's obviously any sort of financial targets or revenue that I have, any goals around that would go into that bucket. Customer excellence, any sort of goals I have around forging my customer experience, I would put that into there. So that may be something like, hey, we're not even capturing CSAT. I need to make sure that all tickets get CSAT on them, right? That's a goal that you can have, and you want to make sure that you structure that accordingly, break it down into smaller goals and roll that out. We have operational efficiency. So of course, any business needs to make sure you're reducing financial waste, you're documenting your processes, you're operating as lean as possible. And then people, right? That's the big one. Hope that's clear that's how we feel about things as well, is that you want to invest in value in your people, right? I want to make sure that my people know that I'm invested in their success, just like they are invested in mine. And so, that may be something like providing performance reviews for them, or creating a one-on-one meeting cadence so that they have that visibility to their management team. Once I'm creating a goal, I'll be able to drill in and see a couple of things. One, I'll be able to assign a date that I expect to have this done by, right? And I'll set an owner for whom is responsible for this goal. I can then break the goal down into smaller sub goals. So for example, creating and launching a new product offering. Sounds simple enough, but that is very difficult and challenging. There's a lot of things that need to go into that. So let's say I'm doing that and I have a step in conducting market research or building competitive analysis or something. I can assign that to an employee. And then the cool thing is that employee then sees how, when I'm asking them to do conducting market research, is contributing to a larger goal and our organization's larger success. And so having that visibility for not only the goals that I'm being asked to do, but the success measures and the performance reviews and the clarity with my management team is how you engage your employees properly. And then centering all of that around your culture that you're building through recognition and rewards is critical to that success. And that is about all we have time for today, guys. And so I am going to take us back and turn it over to Todd for any questions that we have.